We are definitely back, and luckily enough, we have the lovely Ye and Lee, who will have our first question.
What is Hooverism?
Hooverism, as I'm going to kind of talk about what I said on the last video a little bit. Hooverism is his label, his goal to end the Depression. As I said before, he was against direct relief. Hoover was never going to give money out to the people. That's against his philosophy as a businessman, as a man of business, as a millionaire. And the Reconstruction Finance Corporation was the pinnacle of Hooverism. It's his philosophy: we will save the companies first, then that will jumpstart the economy. No direct relief. And unfortunately, with the Reconstruction Finance Corporation, where he's going to give money to banks, mortgage companies, bail them out, and the thought process was bail out the corporations. Obama, are you listening to this? Bail out the corporations, and that's going to end it. It didn't. So Hooverism, or some historians have called it rugged individualism. You'll get out of this depression yourself. Did not work. And then, of course, leads right into FDR's campaign of 32, a New Deal for every American. The government will take your hand and help you out. Ignore that right over there. Whatever that is, ignore that. All right? Chanju, yes, you have a question? Chanju's all the way over there. There he is.
Why did he lose the election of 1932? And what's with the bonus argument?
All right. The real Chanju doesn't like to speak loud. The question was,
This is why they're so low.
what's the deal with the bonus army? And I would say that itself was one of the main reasons why he does not win the 1932 election or his re-election. No other way to spin it. The bonus army was a public relations nightmare. It was a disaster. So, the deal is this. World War I vets, veterans of the World War I, right? They are owed money, their pension, their retirement. They're owed this money, this bonus check in 1945. That's when the government will give them the retirement funds. All right? After a certain amount of years, you get money. Well, a lot of World War I vets were A, unemployed, B, they didn't have jobs, and C, they had no money. So all three of those things, right? So they gathered to march on Washington to ask the government to pass a new law that will allow them to get the retirement funds early, even though it's not 1945. Because they're not going to be alive in 45 because they have no jobs. So they camped out, and they were nicknamed the Bonus Army since they're all former soldiers looking for their bonus checks. Right? And Hoover said, no, we're not. So Hoover did not okay a law that would give these guys their retirement funds early, and these guys just stayed there, and they were angry, and they just didn't leave. They were camping out in front of D.C. This kind of reminds me of Daniel Shays' Rebellion. So again, we always like to connect things in history. This is Shays' Rebellion Part 2, in essence. And the same way that Washington led the troops to dismantle Shays' Rebellion circa 1786. Hoover sends the military out, led by Douglas MacArthur, World War II Douglas MacArthur, to clear out the veterans from World War I. That wasn't so. You have soldiers attacking soldiers, and it was a disaster. And Hoover's popularity went right. And so Chanju, that was a disaster. There's no positive way out of that bonus army fiasco, and riots ensued, and it was that and a major part of Hoover not getting reelected. Hi, Amy. How you doing, kid?
I'm great.
Hey, super duper.
Thank you so much for explaining the domestic affairs.
But how about some foreign affairs?
Well, I don't know about affairs, Amy, but I will talk foreign policy. From here all week. Foreign policy is really, in the 1920s, you kind of want to associate one word with U.S. foreign policy. It's really isolationism. So there was such a backlash to World War I that Americans were disillusioned and they felt duped. They felt it was a ruse, a cunning attempt to trick America getting into war. So they really pushed for isolationism. You can't repeat this again. There were two, I guess, major foreign policies of the 20s. Obviously, I'm not counting the Immigration Act. We talked about that in session 1. But the two major foreign policy, one was the Washington Naval Conference, which talked about disarmament. Washington Naval Conference. So nations got together and agreed to reduce the size of their militaries. And the second one, which now we look back at, is quite comical. It was called the Kellogg-Briand Act. There's the laughter that we were looking for. In essence, it outlaws war as an outlet to.
You can do that.
Yeah, they outlawed war as an answer to disputes between nations. It was their attempt to make for nations to. It was called the Kellogg-Briand Act. It literally outlawed war. Briand, he was a Frenchman, of French variety. It was a push to have nations settle their disputes in the League of Nations. And ultimately, it does not work. So that was the main foreign policy components. That was smooth. She just wants to get on telly. That was the two main foreign policy components of the 1920s.
What about
yes.
alcohol?
Marissa, I'm sorry, I didn't. We have the major, that over there, camera over there, that major distraction over there.
People don't want to watch 5-hour videos.
Yeah, and then, so we have a question back over here.
It's like a feature film. It's so long.
It's quite the production.
Chris,
you have a question, dear?
Well, I really like gangsters.
Who doesn't? We all love gangsters.
They're great.
Yeah.
And so I want to know more about Al Capone.
All right, great question about Capone and the Great Experiment. Organized crime is a direct result of the 18th Amendment, which, of course, the 18th Amendment is a traditionalist view to get rid of alcohol. So you all know, 18th Amendment was passed. The Prohibition Amendment outlawed the sale, the manufacture, the distribution of alcohol, which on one hand was exactly what the traditionalists wanted. However, just because alcohol was illegal doesn't mean it was going to go away. So this led to organized crime. They will get people their alcohol. And so probably the most famous or infamous, however you want to put it, of all the organized crime figures of the 20s was Alphonse Scarface Capone. Chicago. Well, you know what, Marissa, he was well loved. And Chicago was the location of his crime family, his crime syndicate, and he literally put Chicago on the map. It makes it kind of like a worldwide phenomenon. Even to this very age, if you all go traveling around the world and say that you are from Chicago, almost immediately people are going to associate that with Capone. Right, so leave me afraid of you. You say right now, Marissa, if you go to Europe,
I don't think that's true.
That is true. It is a true story. I am a world traveler. I've traveled the world, and people are afraid of me because I am from Chicago.
He's a globetrotter.
All right. And that is your traditionalists versus moderns. Capone capitalized on the government's failure to really enforce the 18th Amendment, and what ultimately leads to Capone's arrest isn't his gangsterism. It was tax evasion. He goes to jail for anything tax evasion. And then he dies in jail.
Great.
It's a good. How much time do I have left, sir?
10 minutes?
10
Or 2 minutes, 2 minutes.
All right.
Yeah, Bowen.
We will, of course, reconvene, and we'll next session will begin with the Harlem Renaissance and my boy, Marcus Garvey.
Here, too.